Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into how the world's biggest trade partnership almost blew up this week and, what it took to pull it back from the brink of a full-on trade war.
So let's start with a number, 250%. Just try to wrap your head around that. Imagine the cost of essential medicine, stuff people need, suddenly multiplying. That was the very real threat just a few weeks ago for pharmaceuticals coming in from Europe. I mean, a number like that, it's staggering. It sent some serious shockwaves through the global economy. And look, this wasn't just about pharmaceuticals. No way. This threat, it was really the peak of a whole strategy that pushed this massive trading partnership. We're talking trillions of dollars here, right to the edge. And this quote from President Trump really gets to the heart of it. It pretty much sums up the whole America First idea, which was a huge driver behind this really aggressive tariff strategy. The goal? It was pretty straightforward. Put pressure on companies to move manufacturing back to the U.S. And they were willing to do that, even if it meant totally shaking up the supply chains that have been in place for years. All right, so let's get into the timeline here. Because wow, the path to this week's deal was anything but smooth. I mean, it was just packed with uncertainty, these last-minute threats popping up, and tension that just kept ratcheting up, leaving businesses and governments completely guessing. I mean, for businesses, this was a total roller coaster. You've got a blanket 30% threat back in April. Then you get this kind of vague handshake deal. And then, boom, out of nowhere in August, these massive, very specific threats on pharma and semiconductors. How can any company possibly plan for the future with that level of whiplash? It's pretty much impossible. Okay, so after all that drama, all that scrambling behind the scenes, what did they actually agree on? Well, when you look at the final numbers, they tell a pretty amazing story. A story of a major de-escalation, of pulling back right from the edge. Just look at this. The reduction is dramatic, right across the board. That terrifying 250% threat on pharmaceuticals slashed down to just 15%. And the 100% threat on semiconductors? Yep, you guessed it, also down to 15. The trade war that everyone was so worried about, it was averted. And instead, you have this consistent rate that brings a huge sigh of relief and, more importantly, predictability back to the market. And you can just feel the sigh of relief in this quote. For a country like Ireland, which is a huge pharmaceutical exporter to the US, this deal was an absolute game changer. It basically put up a shield to protect a supercritical part of their economy from what could have been just devastating costs. But of course, it's not all perfectly straightforward. With any big international deal like this, you know the saying, the devil is in the details. And that's definitely true here. There are some really important conditions, some catches, and a few key industries that, well, didn't exactly walk away with everything they wanted. Let's take the car industry, for instance. The European automakers, they really want that tariff reduction. But it comes with a big catch. The deal says the EU has to move first. They have to pass laws to get rid of their own tariffs on all U.S. industrial goods. Only then will the U.S. lower its tariff on European cars. It's a classic you first, no you first kind of negotiation. And it throws a whole legislative hurdle into the mix before anyone sees the benefit. So while a lot of industries were celebrating, there were definitely some that were left out in the cold. I'm talking about wine and spirits producers on both sides of the Atlantic. They were really disappointed. The final deal just didn't give them the tariff relief they were hoping for, which is a pretty big blow. Now, an EU official did hint that the door is not closed forever, so who knows, maybe this story isn't quite over yet. So let's zoom out. What's the bigger picture here? Why does this trade truce really matter beyond just the numbers on a page? Well, when you boil it all down, this deal is about one thing: bringing back some stability to the biggest trading partnership on the planet. And no surprise here, both sides are spinning this as a huge victory. The EU is talking all about how it brings predictability back for businesses and strengthens that transatlantic relationship. On the US side, they're framing it as a major win for American workers and national security, talking about securing historic access to European markets. Everyone's taking a victory lap. But listen to this quote from the US Secretary of Commerce. It's really, really telling. It shows that, yeah, a deal was reached this time, but that core American belief in using tariffs as a weapon, as an aggressive negotiating tool, that's still very much alive and well. The whole mindset that kicked off this conflict in the first place, it hasn't just disappeared. So in the end, this deal brings a massive collective sigh of relief for now. It stopped what could have been a really damaging economic fight. But it leaves us with this huge lingering question about the future of this relationship. So what do you think? Is this the beginning of a new, stable partnership? Or is it just a temporary truce, a quick pause before the next battle and a much bigger global trade shuffle?